Isn't it beautiful? Watching them claw at their own throats, suffocating on their own lies, while you remain untouched. They assumed that silence meant surrender, but it was a trap from the start. Silence was never about defeat. It was a signal, a forewarning. And by then, it will be too late for them to do anything about it. By the time they truly grasp what your silence meant, they'll be drowning in the mess they've created, flailing, choking on their own regrets. They'll replay every cold stare, every unreturned look, trying to decipher what they missed. That silence will echo louder than any scream, keeping them up at night with bloodshot eyes and shallow breaths. That's what they never understand. Words can be deceptive, but silence is brutally honest. It doesn't need to dress up in false smiles or empty promises. It simply exists. And once you stop defending yourself, once you refuse to explain, that's when they should have begun to worry. But they didn't. They laughed, congratulated each other, and believed they'd won. Now, all that remains for them are questions and the remnants of their own downfall. That's the true revenge, not in the scars or the bruises, but in leaving them with endless uncertainty. It will gnaw at them slowly, each moment of silence a reminder that they never truly knew you. They'll whisper, ask around, try to piece together a puzzle from scattered clues, but it won't matter. The truth is buried too deep. Deep within shadows and locked behind eyes that have long stopped caring. And that, ultimately, will be their undoing. The realization that they were never the hunters, only the prey. And you, with your icy stare and a silence more profound than a grave, will simply watch, waiting as they tighten the noose around themselves. The most effective way to destroy someone isn't to confront them head-on. It's to let them destroy themselves. Step back, fold your arms, and let their own guilt and insecurities do the work. People like that will end up hanging themselves if you give them enough rope. They'll lie, twist the knife, all the while convinced they're winning, never realizing the trap has already been set. All you need to do is remain silent and unmoved. Let them corner themselves with their own words. They might call you heartless or ruthless, even a monster with that distant look in your eyes, and perhaps they're right. Maybe you are a monster, but at least you're an honest one. At least you don't pretend to be something you're not. Because that's the nature of monsters. They don't waste time explaining or justifying their actions. They do what must be done, efficiently and coldly, leaving the shattered pieces for others to clean up. Maybe that makes you the villain in their tale, but who cares? Villain, hero, monster. All those labels are just illusions. What truly matters is that you're still standing, still breathing, and still moving forward. They can keep their black and white narratives and hollow apologies. You have far better things to do than rewrite the past for those who never truly wanted to understand. And that is what sets you apart from them. You stopped looking back long ago, stopped fixating on the ruins and the ashes, and stopped wondering what could have been. You know better. Some wounds cannot be healed, some bridges cannot be rebuilt, and some actions are unforgivable. You learned that the hard way, with bloody knuckles, sleepless nights, and a silence that carved scars into your very soul. So, you stopped explaining. You stopped apologizing for who you are, for the choices you've made, for the bridges you burned. Because, in truth, some people don't deserve an explanation. Some people aren't worthy of closure. Some people deserve to drown in the silence they created. And they will. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but eventually, the weight of their lies will catch up to them. Eventually, they'll find themselves surrounded by empty rooms and echoing halls, realizing that every betrayal, every whispered deceit, every petty game drove away the only ones who ever cared. And when that loneliness finally consumes them, when the guilt and the silence become unbearable, they'll try to come crawling back. They always do, eyes lowered, voices trembling, stuttering out apologies that mean nothing. They'll claim they've changed, that they're remorseful, that they never intended to hurt you. But by then it will be too late. You've moved on, erected walls so high they can't reach them, and all their words will simply bounce off you like echoes in a canyon. That's the nature of betrayal. It's a one-way street. Once the knife is plunged in, there's no extracting it. You'll see it in their eyes, the moment they realize you're done playing their game. That your silence isn't a pause or a breath, but a door slammed shut. They can scream, beg, or plead all they want. But you're not listening. You've made peace with your silence. You've built a fortress out of it. No amount of apologies will ever tear that down. And that's when they'll truly begin to crumble. Not when you shout or fight, but when you simply walk away without a word. With eyes as cold as ice and steps measured and sure, because real silence is akin to a death knell. It's the final, irreversible end. The point of no return. The final nail in the coffin. And some people would rather bleed out than face that reality. But not you. No, you're different. You've seen enough, suffered enough, lost enough to understand that some things are best left buried. Some people aren't worth the satisfaction of knowing every detail of what they did, how deep their treachery cut, or how long it took for their wounds to close. Let them ponder. Let them lie awake, rehashing every word, every cold glance, every unanswered call. Let them drown in the silence they engineered. You have no duty to rescue them or look back. You gave them chance after chance, offered explanations and mercy they never deserved, and they spat on it. They laughed, twisted the knife deeper with every false smile and empty promise. So now, you offer them nothing. No closure, no answers, no second chances. Just silence, pure, unending, and absolute. And maybe that makes you seem cruel, maybe even heartless, but it also makes you free. Free from their lies, their manipulations, from an endless cycle of betrayal and insincere apologies. Free to move forward with your eyes unclouded, your spine unbowed, without the burden of their guilt weighing you down. And isn't that what they fear the most? That you never needed them, that you never craved their validation, their counterfeit smiles, or their empty words. You're better off alone. You're stronger because of the silence, the scars, the bridges you burned without a second thought. And that's precisely why they despise you. That's why they whisper, point fingers, and try to lure you back into their games. Because if you can survive without them, if you can flourish in your silence, then perhaps they were the weak ones all along. So, keep moving forward. Let the silence trail behind you like a dark, endless shadow. Let your past burn into ash. Let their petty accusations fade into nothingness. You have nothing to prove, nothing to justify, nothing to apologize for. You've weathered the worst they could muster and emerged on the other side, colder, tougher, and more resilient. And that is the true victory.